So, welcome back to Whiskey Provisioner at West China Tea. I'm Richard, this is Sohan, that's CJ, and we are back for another episode. Sohan, you've got a new tea, you've got questions about water.
Yep. Yeah, I do. We're rolling, right?
We're rolling. Say whatever you want. I mean, within reason. Yeah, Corey's over here trying to, we're having interesting conversations off camera, and Corey is trying to rein us in, we are trying to make a show here, save the content for the show.
Just geeking out.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're just here and enjoying what we do. I got a red tea, so we're drinking some more rye, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
I freaking love rye so much, so I'm stoked over here. I'm making a tea that I don't know if it's gonna pair good with rye or not, but I know that I love it. It's a really great tea. It's Red Monkey Chief, which is the red tea variant of a very famous green tea called Taiping Houkui. Great Peace Monkey Chief. It comes from Anhui province, and it is the green tea version of this. Taiping Houkui is my favorite green tea and kind of low-key my favorite single tea, period. It's definitely my wife's favorite tea and our daughter's favorite tea. And it's from Anhui province over here, and Huangshan Yellow Mountain, where it's from, is down here. And it's from Hokung village. Again, it means Great Peace Monkey Chief, and that would make this Hong Ho Kuei, Red Monkey Chief, and so that's what we translate it as. And I like it because unlike Taiping Houkui, the green tea, which is one of the most expensive teas that we sell, and I love it and it's great, but you can't drink it every day. This is much less expensive. It's harvested later in the spring. The process is much less labor intensive. And so you can drink, this is something you can drink just casually and enjoy, but it does carry that terroir, that Hokung Huangshan terroir, that gives Taiping Houkui such a distinctive character. It's kind of like a green hard candy thing that's in there. I'm gonna let y'all smell it.
I hear you often mentioning mountains. Is this just typical for tea to be grown on the mountainsides?
Tea grows on mountains.
Is there the side of a mountain? Is it like leeward or, west facing, east facing?
All of the above depends on the mountain, but there's actually, and something it's interesting, the yin and yang, what those words mean. Yin means the shady side of a hill, and yang means the sunny side of a hill. That's what those words mean, and everything yin and yang, and all of the meaning that we assign and that Chinese people assign to those words extends from this original definition. You can't just have one side. You can't have the shady side without the sunny side also existing. It's impossible. So they're completely inseparable. They're opposites, but they're complementary, and they complete each other. And the idea of one existing without the other just doesn't make sense. It's inconceivable. And so He Xiaoling, who makes this tea and makes our Taiping Houkui, she is one of the farmers that we work with who really does distinguish between the yin patches and the yang patches, and she will use the yin patch to make this particular tea and a yang patch to make this particular tea. And generally the yin patch, the shadier side of the shadier patches are considered better. They're more highly prized. Yeah, she gets into the nitty gritty, and she will actually specify yin and yang patch. So the different sides of the mountain, they have different names. They got different characters. It's kind of like we were talking about before. You've got the different rectification plates that are going to give you different kinds of flavor profiles, and you're deciding what to use for what in that. So super excited to have this and for you guys to try it because it's brand new, and we've never had this before. Okay. We always get Taiping Houkui. It's like I said, my favorite tea, my favorite green tea for sure. This is our first year getting this, and we leaned real heavily into getting it. This and a white tea version of the same thing, because we were just like, there's no way it's not going to slap, because the Taiping Houkui is so good. Like, there's no way it can't be amazing, and it is. So excited to share this with y'all.
And this is your red teapot that you like to use?
I'm using my red tea teapot. Yeah, nice. Here I'll bust it out. This is as I tend to do with the darker oxidized teas, I've got a dedicated pot for this. This is a Yixing teapot, a dragon egg Yixing teapot from Chengdu and Chaozhou. He uses Yixing Zuni crimson clay, and he throws this, or he makes these pots there in Chaozhou, and you can see stopping the stream and then.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you mentioned crimson clay. Are there different types of clay that are found in different areas of China?
There all of those colors in the particular paradigm I'm talking about now. There's different colors of clay, all from Yixing, which is the place where this tea is from, where teapots are from originally. And the Yixing clay teapots are, really the finest teapots in the world. With an asterisk, of course, not every teapot from Yixing is the finest teapot in the world, but I think the finest ones still generally come from Yixing. It's the home of the teapot, and the clay that you use there's the brown clay, zisha, what they call purple sand clay. There's the crimson clay, which is very, very rare now. It's very hard to come by. When you're getting a new peat teapot made out of the crimson clay, it's a legacy batch that someone has still got, because they're not mining it out of the ground anymore. And go ahead and just drink this, rinse your palate. I don't have a spot for everyone to pour their rinse right this second. So just swirl it around, drink it, and cleanse your palate from that last round. And the crimson clay, I like the crimson clay for amplifying a tea, whereas the zisha, the purple sand, it doesn't mute it, it softens it. It kind of rounds it out and kind of brings it all together. Whereas the crimson clay really just turns off all the levels on a tea. And so...
Interesting. We have to use certain water in whiskey, and CJ had a question.
Yeah.
If you have iron in the water, you're ruining your whiskey. So you need to have the right kind of water. And CJ had a question about the water you're using for tea.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I know you were before in the tea house talking about it that y'all have specialty water that you demineralize and then remineralize it. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, okay. You're right. We demineralize it by reverse osmosis filtering it. So just like y'all, you're putting RO water for your what is it called?
Élevage.
Élevage. French. Yeah, and so we're doing the same thing. We're completely stripping out all the minerals through that reverse osmosis process, and then we're remineralizing it, because for our purposes, we don't want pure water. We want some minerals in there to mimic spring water, which is what you really use to make tea. The best water for any given tea is spring water from the mountain on which that tea was grown. And as we were talking about before, tea is a mountain plant. That's where it lives. It is a high altitude plant. It's a mountain plant. It's always living on mountains. And so the spring water from the mountain where it's grown, that's the best water you can use. Second best is pure, clean water with minerals. Which minerals? Not too much iron, not too much calcium. This is remineralized with a proprietary blend of 11 different minerals, so I can't say it on the show, or they'll come after me, but for the cease and desist. But no, I don't think so. But I don't remember what they are. But they're good ones. It's all the good ones. Yeah, not the bad ones. All the good minerals.
So is it one where you found out and went after the mineral content from a specific mountain or area, or is it a generalization of this is what we were wanting?
It's just the company whose water machine we use. They've got their own proprietary mix that they do. It's got zeolite. It's got a bunch of other stuff in it, and they've got their own blend, and that's their specific proprietary blend. And we know what it is. We've got like a little brochure that has all the minerals on it. But we don't. I wish that we had the sophistication to analyze some spring water from Anhui, and that'd be great if we could on demand. That'd be amazing if we could on demand be like, I'm making some Taiping Houkui. I want to use some Huangshan water. Let me go ahead and 3D print myself some water.
It's like one of the fancy Coke dispensing machines where it's got the LED screen that you tap on for each spring that you want.
Oh man, that would be really cool if it could just on demand make you 3 gallons of Huangshan, simulated water. But no, unfortunately, we're all using the same water, but it does have a pretty good kind of general spring water style remineralization going in there. And it is super important, super. The water is it cannot overstate how important the quality of the water that you're using for tea is.
And distilled water has no flavor, using distilled water would not be an acceptable replacement. So spring water from locally might be the better way to go?
It depends on the spring water. So Mountain Valley spring water is not good for tea. It's great water to drink, but it's got too much calcium.
Okay.
And so you'll get flakes in your kettle, and it covers up the flavor of the tea. Likewise, San Marcos spring water, not great for tea. Too much calcium. There's all this limestone here in Central Texas. So a lot of the local spring water is actually not ideal for tea. It's too rich.
Interesting.
You want something a little bit leaner for your tea in general.
Where limestone is actually desirable in the whiskey world.
Yeah, it's iron that's not. So if you get a certain concentration, like a certain ppm of iron, it'll actually turn your whiskey black and opaque. So to where it's obviously not desirable to look inside of a bottle on a shelf and just see black liquid, but
Unless you're goth.
that, I mean,
Does it taste good? Does it taste bad? Does it affect the taste?
it would change it would change the flavor because it's a heavier mineral. Now to the extent I can't say because I haven't tried whiskey that's like that, but that was one of the things that from kind of the beginning has been kind of drilled into me of like, hey, you need to, especially in certain areas where it's rougher or if you're using well water, stuff like that, it's something to be mindful of.
Right. Yeah, because if it doesn't taste bad, I'm down to drink some black whiskey. That's metal.
It's like a vegetable stir fry. It's got earthy mushrooms and green vegetables.
Baby corn kind of.
Even French beans. Like the,
Ooh, yeah.
Look at fancy, man. Yeah. And then the empty cup fragrance, the cold cup fragrance on this one that's where you get that hard candy, Ho Kung Village, super sweet, like crackle candy, sweet. Ooh, yeah, so good, so complex, and it really develops a lot.
Yeah.
Just raging like fragrance on this.
Old-timey whorehound candies.
Yeah.
But a little bit like
I say as though I know what that means.
Yeah, there you go.
But like a fruit note, too, like almost like a fruit leather element to it.
Fruity, very floral. Ooh. Got that hard candy. If you want some, Corey, get in here. This is some red tea. You know you like this.
So CJ, earlier you were reminding me how we first met and maybe some advice to people who want to get into the industry. Apparently I gave you some and here you are how many years later? 4 or 5 years later? Yeah.
I've been now distilling commercially for about 3.5 years almost.
Wow.
So almost a year. Originally it was at Ranger Creek was the first place that I started off at, and then my 2 years at Still Austin was February, so coming up on 2.5 years now.
So Sohan, apparently CJ walked into the Crowded Barrel tasting room with a resume.
Yeah, it was actually, which it's funny because how I got started involves two people here, Corey and Richard. Originally, it was one of those where I was a fan of and watching Modern Rogue and stuff like that. Their scam school, doing things like that. And they had one of, I can't remember what the title was for the whiskey video. How to drink whiskey like a gentleman, I believe.
Right.
But there was one that they did. Watching that, I was like, okay, but it still seemed far away and like something I couldn't really get into because I was still in high school. So it was one of those watching that, but there was a video that y'all did of how to make mead. Now that for a high school kid, it's pretty easy to go to Walmart and get some yeast and some honey and do that. So that's actually how I got started, was making mead at home. And once I got that and I got the bug doing that, then purely for entertainment purposes, I started making moonshine and stuff at home. Again, purely for entertainment. And don't do that. That's not how it's supposed to be.
So you bought a still? You built a still?
First one was, I made it out of like a Erlenmeyer flask and some copper tubing from Home Depot.
All right.
Did not work at all.
Okay.
And then afterwards, I did buy a small 1 gallon one where I did a bunch of different experiments on. After that, when I got to college at Texas State, stopped doing that. Kind of hard to do that and find a heat source inside of a dorm.
Sure.
So, but I still did a few batches of mead. And I was finishing up my junior year, and I was back for Christmas break, and talking with my parents. I'm like, all right, what are you going to do, man? Like, I have no clue. They're like, well, you got 1.5 years left. You're not coming back here.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And so they kind of walked me through and gave me some ideas, and Like, what are you passionate about? What are you wanting to do? And one of them was making alcohol. I really enjoyed that, and it was okay. What are the career paths with that? Talking with my dad, especially, of walking me through and like, hey, this is what you want to do, of mead or liquor. I was like, I really enjoyed whiskey. Okay, go make it happen.
Great. What a cool dad. I
Yeah,
really appreciate that your parents
both my
were
parents were very
supportive of your life choices. That's really great.
Very much.
It's good
grew up
parenting.
helping me out and being very supportive.
Happy Father's Day to your dad.
Yes,
Yeah.
which honestly I think he was playing the long con, because now he gets a son that brings him whiskey and he really enjoys that.
Yep.
But I printed out a bunch of different resumes, and this was 2020, so this was COVID.
Yeah.
So this was on the tail end of COVID. 2020 or 2021? I think 2021, the beginning of 2021. And so I started, I printed out a bunch of resumes, went from Pflugerville all the way to San Antonio, and the guys that got me interested in whiskey were Rex and Daniel. Watching the YouTube channel and doing that, and they're kind of what got me the bug. So I was 20 years old. It was 2021, so I was 20 years old, and I went to handing out resumes of, hey, who's going to hire me? And Richard, they kind of just started distilling there, pretty much.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he talked to me about was like, hey, something that would help out is reaching out to the Texas Whiskey Trail. Similar to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, Texas has our own whiskey trail that we actually have more distilleries on, I believe.
Yeah. I think we're at, what, 24 now?
So we've only been doing whiskey in Texas for 20 years.
Less.
15?
Less.
15?
Shut up. Really?
Yeah, I think.
Why?
2000
Because it's too hot? Is that
Yeah,
why?
well, the whiskey,
Seven
it
or
was
eight?
actually Tito's that started the whole thing off. Tito's was the very first distillery.
What were people not distilling stuff in cowboy times?
Well, we were, but
Prohibition.
This is, yeah.
Prohibition kind
This is-
of.
So there probably
extinct.
were Texas whiskeys, and then they just stopped.
There are always going to be farmers on their own farmland taking their excess stuff and doing what they want with it. But it's not in distribution. It's not done legally. The first legal distillery post prohibition is going to be Tito's. And then the first whiskey is coming out of Balcones and Garrison Brothers.
Tito Beverage.
Yeah.
What are the odds?
Yeah.
I mean, actually, the guy who painted this place, his name is Nick Painter. So sometimes,
Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm excited to try these more ryes.
More ryes
What
today.
a treat. I'm a spoiled boy today because I love rye.
So when we're out doing tastings at liquor stores and different places like that, we get a lot of questions from consumers asking what's what. And honestly, this question made me try to figure out the best way to answer what this lady was asking. What is the difference between these two bottles? One is single barrel cask strength, and the other one is cask strength rye. The simple answer is this is a single barrel, and this is barrels that were put together for a specific flavor profile by blending multiple barrels of rye together.
And Nancy would have done that.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So my way of trying to explain it to people is this is the violin soloist in the concert. This is the soloist. This is the orchestra. You may find that solo happening with the orchestra, but it's a different experience than listening to the soloist on their own without the accompaniment.
I really like that analogy.
Yeah,
I've never
that's a
heard
good
that before, but
analogy.
it's perfect.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the cask strength rye. This is going to be a batch. This is the same rye that we did earlier, but there's other terms in here. This could also be called batch strength.
Wait, so we're about to drink the same one that we just drank?
Yes.
And then compare it to, okay, give me a tiny little bit.
It's a higher proof.
Except it's at a higher proof.
Oh, it's a higher proof.
Yeah.
It's this cask strength.
Yes.
And that was 90-something.
This was 99.6. That one
99.6.
should be 116, I believe. Or is that one of the older ones where it's 118?
I can never read the very bottom
Should
print.
be at the very bottom of the
58,
center.
so yeah, 116.
Yes.
Yeah. So these we're going to taste these side by side and get our impressions from the two of these. So that is the cask strength.
I feel like you're.
I'm not going to complain about more of this rye because.
And this is going to be the single barrel. So try and keep track which one's which as we're tasting these, because there is going to be similarities and there is going to be differences between the two of them. So here is your single barrel.
Okay.
And that's his single barrel.
All right, I'm keeping my single barrel on the left.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Same
they're different
here.
colors. They're different colors. Single barrel is a little bit redder. And so, what I assume, I guess it was Nancy also who decided to take this particular barrel and be like, no, this one's going to be by itself.
No, actually. So that's separate. So Nancy does her own thing. So once a month she chooses a single barrel. It's called Nancy's Pick, and that one's only available at the distillery. But this is actually done through our single barrel program. So a man named Christian, he's in charge of our single barrel program. So what happens is he's allotted a certain amount of barrels a year of like, hey, this is how many single barrels we can release throughout this year. And what happens is he takes samples from a lot of the older stuff and figures out, okay, which barrels do I want to be a part of this program?
Got it.
They're all, the way he does it is incredible. So he does it to where they all are varying in flavors, so they're not the same as what you would get with the normal cask strength. So it's one of those where if you're getting a single barrel, you're getting something that is more unique rather than having something that's the same.
Right. It's got and so and you like, you know, it's kind of a spectrum. You think about on one end of the spectrum you've got single barrel, then you've got a batch, and then on the far end you've got like straight up blended whiskey like Crown Royal or something like that, you know, where it's different distilleries are being blended together. You have the same thing in tea, you know, where you've got on this end that kind of blended whiskey and you've got a factory production pu'er that comes from different mountains, different farms. Then you go down more specific, you got single farm, then you've got single patch. We've got Immortal Dew is a blend of 3 different patches, all from the same farm, all on Nanhua Mountain. Duoyi, Bampo, Shito patches, but we also have the Duoyi, Bampo, and Shito patches by themselves. And then even the most specific is that there's single tree Gushu Cha, ancient tree Sheng Pu'er, which we have single tree Sheng Pu'er, which honestly could have made that one for this, now that I think about it. But this is, I like this red tea.
And this is very much the same as what you were saying about the different spaces where things are aged. They're going to age differently. So if you're on the south side of a barrel house, you're going to get more of the daily sun. You're going to get more heat on that wall. If you're higher up in the barrel house, the higher up you go inside of those buildings that are not temperature controlled, most often, you're going to get more heat on the higher elevations inside of the barrel house. You're going to have a different interaction. So if you're on the north side, the shady side in the far back, it's going to have another flavor. So this is what we were talking previously about places like the very large places in Kentucky and Tennessee that have very large production. They start knowing historically where those types of flavors change inside of those barrel houses, and they're easily going to be able to pull from those places, knowing historically these flavors come from these places and this is how they're going to blend together. Whereas a smaller volume, which is still where we're at with this, you're coming up with many different flavors, and a lot of them tend to be more surprises because we're still young at doing this.
This is the same color as the single barrel. The color matches almost perfectly with the single barrel, but not with the blended one, not with the multi-barrel one. So that's cool. So I'm going to go ahead and with the one that we already had, but higher proof now, cask strength. Oh, it's nice. I like cask strength rye.
Yeah. So the sweetness.
That's good. I like that.
The sweetness it's there, but it's thinner. It's not as full bodied on the tongue. You're not getting as much vanilla.
It's really good though. I enjoy cask strength whiskey, but I'm not trying to prove anything with it. I just do enjoy it sometimes when it's, but sometimes I like it weaker. You know, sometimes it is better. Some whiskeys are better at a lower, concentration. But this one, having tried it both forms. I really like the cask strength
Dude, go
version
back to
of
the
this.
tea.
Yeah.
It's
man.
incredible.
It
But it's one
pairs
of those
super
where,
well.
especially right now in the Texas heat, when it's 97 to 105 degrees, you're not really going to want something that's 116 proof,
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
You're going to want something that's a little bit lower, more approachable, something to
Wow.
where you can truly enjoy and it's not going to punch you in the face.
Yeah, there's so much in the combination of the tea and the whiskey that's not in either of them.
No. Yeah.
There's so many new notes. It's like a whole garden of flowers just kind of blooms when you combine those two. That's really nice.
These contrast very well.
Yeah.
We could do a kick-ass Still Austin West China tea pairing
I would
flight. We could
love
do
to.
a kick-ass. These are some of the best pairings that
This
we've
would
had
be-
in this whole series.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really
That
nice.
is fun. And the thing is with the higher proof as well, in the summertime, throwing an ice cube in there it'll stand up against an ice cube. Water does some interesting things sometimes to cask strengths. It'll pull out different flavors and different notes. Sometimes it'll pull with something as astringent, it can make it more astringent.
Oh yeah, wow, that is really nice.
Yeah, it's a big part of when deciding the proof for a whiskey for the bottle. What proof works best and what works well for that flavor profile. Because there's a lot of things you have to keep in mind too. Of some people are going to prefer it on ice versus neat. So if you throw it into a bottle when it's already at a lower proof, then it's not going to stand up as well with ice for some people who enjoy it that way.
Wow.
So there's a lot of different factors and things you have to look at, because even if you do something at 116 versus 114 proof, if you were to do a side-by-side direct comparison, they would be worlds apart.
Wow, love that.
This one is singing more. This is like, yeah.
Ooh, it's nice. It's really nice. This single barrel is really nice. It's very almost have like some kind of stone fruit in there. That is not in this one at all.
So we get some like
It's like the lead
apricot,
singer.
some plum.
Yeah.
It's like the lead
juicy.
singer and this is the band.
God, it's really nice. That's a really special bottle. That's so cool because I already really like the blended version of this, and then being able to try a single barrel of this same
And they're
one is
not
really
proofing
special.
it to the floor on that regular release. They're in like 47%. You know,
This one
it's
here.
99.6 proof. So is that
that's-
49.8?
Yeah, there you go.
It's high.
And there's a reason for that. Again, we've talked about the oils carrying flavor. If you get down below 47%, the whiskey can get cloudy. You fracture a lot more of the oils. It doesn't carry as much
Ooh,
flavor.
that's also really nice with
Yeah.
the tea. Really, really good pairing. Man, that is really,
I
really
haven't tried
nice.
the single barrel with the tea yet. I've just been nosing them.
Yeah, it's
Ooh.
Yeah,
There-
it's fun.
it really must take a lot of skill to be able to select a barrel to be a single barrel whiskey. It seems like that would really take a lot of experience and skill to be able to be like, okay, this isn't going into a blend. This is just going to be it's going to batch. This is just going to be, bottled on its own. But I really appreciate the distinctive character of this one.
It's also tailoring them to the person that's getting them too.
Right.
So for some companies and some people that buy single barrels privately, well, what are they going to want? Are they going to want something that's a little bit crazier, a little bit funkier?
Right.
Or are they going to want something that's nice, middle of the road? And Christian does an incredible job too of I hope I'm not butchering this, but I believe what he does is he takes 5 different samples from different barrels that are completely and wildly, each of them are different from each other, after talking with them of like, hey, what are you wanting, and getting an idea. So it's really tailoring them to the client and to the guests themselves.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the single barrel programs. And you're going through a half a dozen whiskeys. You have to sit there and go, I like the nose, I like the body, I like the finish, and you have to start ranking them. And if it's the three of us trying to pick a barrel together, we have to come to some kind of consensus.
Yes. Yeah.
And then if we're selling this on to customers, to somebody else, it's not just our opinion. Is this also going to be palatable to strangers? So if I'm a liquor store doing a barrel pick and I want to sell a bunch of this, first of all, because the three of us work at that store, we need to be on board to say, yeah, this is a product that we can stand behind and we want to taste it with other people. This is why we picked this. This is what we were tasting. And this is why you're going to want to buy this bottle. So if you have that thought process in mind to begin with, you're going to end up selling more bottles.
Yeah.
If it's just somebody saying, you know what, you're getting this one.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
There isn't that buy-in.
Almost get cherry. Almost like a sour cherry. Like sour cherry juice. Really nice. I've had single barrel whiskeys where I didn't feel like it was really any more special than the batch counterpart. But this one is really lovely.
get almost like some dates.
Yeah.
I got
But a little bit like
of
leather.
a dry leather library book.
Yeah.
I'm really getting that cherry. I'm really getting, even in the taste, I'm getting that cherry. And it pairs really nicely with the tea. Really good with the tea.
Ooh.
Yeah, both fantastic. I'm loving this whole rye situation that we've got going on here because, like I said, I love rye. I'm loving getting to have this nuance in rye. This is something I never, except for we did a couple different ryes in that first episode, but love having getting the nuance in there.
I think that's one of the interesting things that going back to what you're saying about single barrel versus a blend, or we call it a coupe. So each batch of bottles is a coupe, which is a blend of a certain amount of barrels. And each distillery has a different sized coupe. Obviously, some place like Jameson, Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, their coupes and their blends are going to be a lot bigger than ours. But it has elements to it that, going back to what we were saying of, well, this one has a little bit too much of this smoky flavor. This one has too much of that fruit note that doesn't fit the normal flavor profile, but it's something that stands out and helps make it pop in a single barrel.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Richard, for bringing this single barrel.
This is good. Thank you.
Really lovely progression here.
Yeah, we also got to thank Chris Kane for opening this bottle at a Total Wine tasting. He just serendipitously ended up walking in, as he does, into liquor stores. And that's one of the struggles with spirits is the stuff getting stocked on the shelf? Is it getting restocked? What does the display look like? Is it falling apart? Do they need to order more? So that's very important. And, it doesn't matter who you pass the buck along to, whether it's a distributor that has to distribute it or if it's the store, you've got to check up on your products and make sure that they're well represented. And Still Austin has been doing a fantastic job, especially in the Austin area.
Thank you.
So
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And I would say that having had 3 different permutations of the Still Austin rye, even at the height of when I drank alcohol at all, like the last time I had a drink was 3 weeks ago when we did the show. I only drink on the show pretty much, and but even when I was drinking a lot more often and drinking whiskey a lot more often, I would have 1 bottle of whiskey at a time and I would drink it till it was gone. That's what I never had a whiskey collection of any kind. I'd have a whiskey at a time and I would just drink that until it was gone. And any of these ryes would be a great. This is the one whiskey that you've got. Like if I was gonna have a bottle, then any of these would be like a bottle of whiskey that I would like keep on my nightstand back when I was single.
Our rye is kind of like I said, it's an employee favorite.
I love it,
because it's easily accessible, but there's also so many things that you can do and play with, kind of like how you saw earlier with the Madeira cask. With some of the other finishes that we've done with it, there's so many different things you can do with it and play around with it to where you're not just stuck doing the same thing.
And that boldness of that rye, it's a great rye. I mean, I really appreciate that the rye. What's the name of the rye again?
The artist.
No, the grain itself.
Brasetto.
Brasetto. Yeah, I really love that. There's a name to that rye. It's not just rye.
There's a whole different ton of variations, and I believe it's. There's a company, I think Michigan or Wisconsin up north, called Far Northern, where they did a rye varietal study, which they got a grant from the state to grow different varietals of rye. I believe they grew 10 different varietals on the same amount of acreage, the same percentage.
Science.
And they did it to see the flavor profiles of each different one. But the thing I love the most about that study is rye, as a distiller, is notoriously tough to work with. Mm-hmm. It likes to, because of the enzymes and everything within it, it foams up in the column or in the pot. It gelatinizes and gets very sticky and gummy inside of your mash on your cooker. So one of the things that they had was a scale of ease to work with. And their scale and relativeness was, can you cook this with your grandmother? Or are you swearing like a sailor? Like, what is your swear level when working with this?
Far Northern Spirits is Rocknar, so if you're looking for that, you're probably going to have to order that online. Rocknar, everyone that I've had has all been unusual and different, and I thought for some strange reason that it was like Icelandic because it's called Rocknar.
It looks like it. The label too looks,
Yeah, you have to actually dissect the label, so yeah, this is a really cool experiment. Rye whiskey, go out and try the ones that aren't made by MGP.
They're so different.
So
different. Yeah, beautiful study in rye tonight. So thank you, CJ and Richard, so much for bringing all these great ryes.
Thank you. This was really fun.
We got a couple more whiskeys to talk about, so cheers to you all, and we'll come back to another episode.
Cheers.